MSW Media. A big thanks to Athletic Greens for supporting the Daily Beans. Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Just go to athleticgreens.com/dailybeans to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance.
News with swearing. Daily Beans, Daily Beans. Daily Beans, Daily Beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. Today, America celebrates Independence Day with another mass shooting. The Oath Keepers' defense to seditious conspiracy charges takes shape. Donald eyes another run for the White House in 2024. And experts say Hutchinson's testimony shatters a Trump defense of no criminal intent. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
So another mass shooting in America today, Dana.
Indeed. I don't even understand the holiday. I can't comprehend celebrating this holiday at all today. So it just feels like Monday. There's so many things fucked up in this country right now when it comes to independence, including all of our autonomy as women and people that can conceive. We're having a day, people. I'm sure you are as well. By the time you hear this, I hope that you've had a moment of reprieve. But today, things are not great. Not great.
Yeah. And I will be talking with Andy McCabe up at the top of the hot notes to discuss how this investigation is probably playing out. He's done this several times, unfortunately. And this shooter from Highland Park is still on the loose at the time of this recording. So we're going to discuss what that investigation looks like at the top of the hot notes. And then later in the show, I'm going to be interviewing the author of The Invisible Storm. And it's out today. And his name is Jason Kander. So you'll want to stick around for that. And then, of course, we will have the good news, which we desperately need at the end of the show. So if you have any good news, you can send it to us by going to dailybeanspod.com and clicking on contact. All right. That is the outline of the show. Let's jump in. Let's hit the hot notes. Hot notes. 6 are dead and another 24 have been injured in a mass shooting during an Independence Day parade by an 18 to 20-year-old white male with a high-powered rifle shooting from an elevated position. And we were supposed to talk to Andy McCabe tonight about this story, but he's been tied up on CNN covering this all day as law enforcement looked for the shooter. I'll give you the rundown that we have at this time. The shooter, who is now known to law enforcement, has been taken into custody. Online sleuths peg him as a Trump supporter. He's been to several Trump rallies. There's photos and videos of him at those rallies circulating. His father apparently had a business in the area that had been closed down just 3 months prior, I think. Something like that are the rumors that are coming out about what people online have been able to find out about this guy. Apparently, he fired 60 rounds in 22 seconds from what is believed to be an AR-15. I repeat, he was taken into custody by law enforcement at about 7:30 p.m. Central Time. No motive has been established at this time. They just got him. And law enforcement is waiting to make a determination on whether this was an act of terror or not, meaning whether it was politically motivated. And we will have more for you as this story develops.
AG, thank you so much for that. My first story right now, Donald Trump may soon officially announce he's going to run for the presidency because he's having a fit about the dirt revealed on him in the hearings investigating the Capitol riot, and because he has, quote, all the impulse control of a freaking toddler. And that's from a former GOP official on Saturday. Now, that is true. This is a quote, at the end of the day, he's going to do whatever he wants. He's shown that time and time again. And that's Kurt Bardella. And he's a former deputy communications director of the GOP-controlled House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. That's what he told MSNBC. He's now a Democrat, by the way, and a news commentator. So he's really, Trump, what he's done, he's got a few people to switch parties, that's for sure. Went on to say, this guy has the impulse control of a freaking toddler. So nobody should be surprised at that at all. I think the Republicans, this is the golem they created. And that's what he said during that interview. Now, Bardella was responding to a New York Times story Friday that Trump is hoping a stepped-up announcement. There's hoping a stepped-up announcement about going for the presidency, yet again, is going to distract the general public, from what is being called the stream of damaging revelations, which is clear and it could officially declare he's entering the race as early as this month. So he thinks this is going to keep him out of prison. Now, this is a quote we all know from past experiences. Donald Trump doesn't care about anybody else but Donald Trump. Again, that's Bardella. He told MSNBC host Alex Witt. Went on to say, so it doesn't surprise me that when faced with the criticism that he's been mounting right now following the January 6th hearings, that he's thinking about pulling the trigger now. Horrible choice of words, because at this point, I wouldn't put it past him actually shooting someone on Fifth Avenue. Now, that timing will likely, quote, ruin things for the Republicans ahead of the midterms as more negative testimony taints the candidate. And that's also from Bardella. But it's what Republicans deserve for tying their future to Trump. Bardella is definitely going in hard after him right now and the Republicans, which is a beautiful thing. And he went on to say, you know what, Donald? Go out there. Show everybody who you are. What you want to do. Implode the Republican Party before November. So Bardella's thinking, fucking do this because you're going to tank everyone for the midterms. I would be on board for that. He went on to say these guys have wanted to divorce themselves from Donald Trump for the last 5 years. They just have lacked courage, the ability, and the guts to actually do it. And that was, again, Bardella. And behind the scenes, he said they are rooting for the January 6th committee. So Republicans are really wanting for him to be taken out so that they're not crossing him, basically, because we know what happens when someone crosses this guy. Now, Bardella claimed that, quote, nobody was more excited about the powerful testimony early this week by Cassidy Hutchinson than who? Republicans who want to dispense with Trump.
Yeah, agreed. And speaking of Hutchinson, George Conway and Randall Eliason have a new op-ed out in the Washington Post you need to check out. They say if Donald Trump is ever criminally charged for his efforts to remain in power after losing in 2020, the central issue would be his state of mind. Did he act with criminal intent? Or was he just innocently, though aggressively, pursuing all possible avenues of lawful recourse to remedy what he truly believed was a stolen election? His potential defense of lack of criminal intent was flimsy to begin with, but after Tuesday's devastating testimony from former Trump White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, it lies in tatters. Proving Trump's culpable state of mind just got a whole lot easier for prosecutors, and that's Eliason and Conway. With Hutchinson's testimony, they say we now know that Trump was aware that some of his supporters were armed when he urged them to march on the Capitol and fight. Quote, I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. They can march to the Capitol from here. That's what Hutchinson recalls Trump saying. Trump didn't even care about the risk to his own vice president. According to Hutchinson, Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, said Trump wasn't worried about the protesters' chance of hang Mike Pence and thought Mike deserved it. And she said Trump's own White House counsel warned that if Trump were to go ahead with his own plans to lead the march on the Capitol, quote, we're going to get charged with every crime imaginable. That's Patsy Baloney. The evidence of Trump's corrupt intent was already pretty strong, Conway continues. The January 6th committee earlier presented extensive evidence of his pressure on state officials to alter election results, his scheme to corrupt the Justice Department and enlist it in his efforts, and his relentless pushing of the big lie despite repeatedly being told by his own people that there was no election fraud. But Hutchinson's testimony might well have put the case over the top. She tied Trump directly to the assault on the Capitol itself, the violent culmination of weeks of acts aimed at obstructing the peaceful transition of power. Now he can no longer plausibly claim, if he ever could, that this was just a peaceful protest gone bad. Some argue that prosecutors could face difficulty proving criminal intent if it appears that Trump sincerely believed he won the election. But that argument is misguided, they say. Even if Trump believed, however implausibly, that there really had been massive voter fraud, that would establish only his motive for acting, not his intent. And there's a difference between intent and motive. But a righteous motive is not a defense. Put simply, criminal acts motivated by an honest belief in the justness of one's cause are still criminal acts. And Conway brings up again that O.J. Simpson example that we talked about, the robbery one, not the the one that he got away with, and how, you can't rob your stuff back at gunpoint.
Even if you believe something's true, you can't commit a crime to make it, to prove it.
Right. Or to fix it.
Correct.
And he says it's still relevant, though, that Trump actually did know he lost the election. That knowledge can be shown by willful blindness. That's a legal rule that a defendant may be deemed to know something if he is deliberately closing his eyes to the truth. Trump was told countless times by advisors and by more than 6 courts that he had lost and had no valid legal recourse on January 6th. He simply shut his eyes to that reality. Willful blindness can be used to establish only knowledge of a fact, the fact being I lost the election, not a criminal intent. But the questions of knowledge and intent can intertwine. If Trump knew he lost the election, that would strongly reinforce the case that he acted with criminal intent in trying to overturn the election despite that knowledge. Prosecutors considering whether to charge Trump with, say, conspiring to obstruct the congressional certification of the electoral vote now have a near smoking gun evidence of intent. Even if Trump was detached from reality, as former Attorney General Bill Barr put it, he's still responsible for his actions. And now it's clearer than ever that Trump intended to stay in office by any means necessary, even violent ones.
Absolutely. I love the way this case is building. They're doing a damn good job. Now, back to another case when 9 accused leaders of the Oath Keepers go on trial this fall to face seditious conspiracy charges for their role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the Capitol. Jurors in the government's first big showcase trial will hear a defense argument that will sound outlandish to many. Jurors will be told that the far-right extremists believe that Donald Trump would invoke the Insurrection Act as they gathered at the Capitol, 100 strong in their camo-colored tactical gear, and turn them into his own ultra-loyal federal militia. All right? Now, their fantasy mission? To stop the steal, defend the president, defeat the deep state. And that's according to since-deleted rhetoric from their own website, okay? Now, a defiant Trump would officially be their commander-in-chief, which could you not have a worse leader, my God. But to quote, do not concede and do not wait until January 20, 2021, Inauguration Day. Strike now, the Oath Keepers leader and founder Elmer Stewart Rhodes urged in an open letter to Trump on December 14th of 2020. You must call us up and command us. And you remember when he was like, stand back and stand by?
Mm-hmm.
That's all they fucking heard that day.
Yeah, and that open letter, by the way, happening on December 14th, 2020, 5 days later, the tweet went out, come to January 6th, we'll be wild.
Yep. Now, James Lee Bright, a lawyer for Rhodes, acknowledged that most people will be shocked to learn that the Oath Keepers thought they'd become a federal militia. They believe what? Bright imagined people thinking. These guys are fucking crazy. He nonetheless hopes to convince jurors that the pro-Trump anti-government group had two lawful and non-seditious reasons to be at the Capitol on January 6th. Reason one, this is their defense. They were an invited security force for rally planners and participants, including Roger Stone, Ali Alexander, Latinos for Trump, and Virginia Women for Trump. Now, reason two, they were awaiting Trump's orders. When those orders failed to come, Rhodes' lawyers will argue that the Oath Keepers left the Capitol. They had dinner at the Olive Garden and then collected the weapons and provisions they'd stashed and never used in their rooms at the Comfort Inn in Arlington, Virginia. Then they went home. Now, the feds argue in court papers that Oath Keepers' private chat messages show sedition with their real motives. So there's private chat the feds have that are saying that's bullshit. All of this is bullshit and we can prove it.
Yeah, and the big question is, why did they think that Donald would invoke the Insurrection Act? Was that the plan? Who told them that? Was that discussed on the phone between Meadows and Bannon or Flynn and Stone at the Willard War Room on January 5th? Was it discussed at other times? Flynn, we know, his message, along with the Pillow Man to Donald Trump, was to invoke the Insurrection Act. Is that what Donald Trump was trying to do when he wanted to go to the Capitol? With, when he was lunging at the Secret Service guys driving the SUV. Was that the plan? Was to get there and invoke the Insurrection Act, call up these militias that had boatloads of guns and boats ready to cross the Potomac? What was the goal? Was it written down? And I think that some of those answers might come out in the next couple of hearings.
Wonderful. I know we've been waiting and a lot of people are like, this needs to happen faster. You got to think about what's happened in the last month with these hearings. A lot. This thing has been flying by.
Yeah. It truly has. And, we're on the Watergate timeline, really, and this is 10 times bigger. And if we stay on the Watergate timeline, and if they do decide to indict Donald Trump, which is according to George Conway, Eliason, Barb McQuaid, Joyce Vance, just got a lot easier with Hutchinson's testimony. If they do decide to indict him, the indictments in Watergate came 9 months after the hearings. Now, we have, I think, a lot more evidence now, as I think DOJ was trying to get the tapes for a very long time in Watergate. But, if we're going along the same timeline, we're looking at spring of next year for indictments. But, like I said, there's more evidence now of more crimes now than I think they had in Watergate, but it's a lot bulkier of a process because of having to go through electronics devices, terabytes of data, having to share that with defense.
Yeah.
So I mean, who knows, but we're on still a pretty fast timeline, I would say.
Yeah.
I just want to let everybody know that. And I know we don't have a lot of time. I do know that. I do understand that. But not having a lot of time doesn't make investigations or review of evidence go any faster. I'm hoping the 131 lawyers they added and prosecutors they added are helping take a bite out of that work. I think maybe enlisting the Office of the Inspector General to assist with some of these investigations, like the usurping of Eastman and Clark's phones, might be helping push this along a little bit faster, using every resource that they can. I personally, and I've said this, Dana, and I've talked with Pete Strzok about this, I would have liked to have seen a bigger sense of urgency and more money thrown at this early on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But here we are. And we'll see what happens. But I do think we are closer to an indictment of Donald than we were previously, before this Hutchinson testimony.
100%. I would agree. Absolutely.
All right. We'll be right back with the author of The Invisible Storm, new book out today by Jason Kander. Please stay with us.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Hey, everybody, let's talk about something I use literally every day, and it was so easy and convenient to put into my habit. I started taking Athletic Greens AG1 because I wanted more energy and an optimized immune system, and I wanted to save myself time and money over the cabinet full of supplements and superfoods and probiotics that I used to take before. With one delicious scoop of AG1 by Athletic Greens, you get 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food-sourced superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, your nervous system, immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and your aging. All of the things. And we want to thank Athletic Greens for their support. And right now they're offering you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase when you go to athleticgreens.com/dailybeans. They are a climate-neutral certified company, which is important to me and the show, and they're incredibly lifestyle-friendly. Whether you're keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free, whatever it is, it's fine. And Athletic Greens will fit into your diet perfectly and your routine. It saves me so much time, and it tastes delicious. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It's just 1 scoop in a cup of water every morning. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And to make it easy, again, Athletic Greens is going to give you that free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/dailybeans. Again, that's athleticgreens.com/dailybeans to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. I'm happy to be joined today again by my friend, veteran and host of the Majority 54 podcast, and now author of The Invisible Storm, a soldier's memoir of politics and PTSD. Please welcome Jason Kander. Hi.
Thanks for having me back.
Again, thank you for your service. Thank you for all that you do.
You too. Especially
in increasing awareness of PTSD, which I also get to have for the rest of my life. So thank you. Thank you for that.
You're quite welcome.
It's so important, though. And so were a lot of the messages that you've put out. People know who you are, even if they don't know that they know who you are. Give everyone sort of a recap of where they have seen you.
Sure. Okay. Easiest thing is a lot of people, the short version is I'm the guy from the gun ad. I'm the guy who put the rifle together in 2016 in the ad where I was making my case for background checks. I was blindfolded, putting a rifle together. That's where a lot of people, quote unquote, discovered me. But I am a recovering politician, former Secretary of State of Missouri, who in 2018 was like me and a dozen other people, at least a couple dozen people were getting ready to run for president in 2020. And I also am an Afghanistan veteran who was struggling with undiagnosed, untreated post-traumatic stress disorder. Took myself off the presidential campaign trail to go to the mayoral campaign trail back home in Kansas City. That was going great from a campaign perspective. I was going to win, but things were getting worse and worse for me upstairs, so to speak. And I ended up with pretty serious suicidal thoughts. Found myself in the suicide hold at the emergency room at the VA here in Kansas City, dropped out of the mayoral race, dropped out of public life, went to get treatment at the VA for a few months. And now I've spent the last almost 4 years of my life in post-traumatic growth and doing things that make an impact. And I wrote a book about it.
Yeah, and let's talk about making that impact, because we're going to dive into the book here. It's available now. Again, it's called Invisible Storm. And you have something that you're doing with the proceeds from this book. So talk a little bit about that, because that is right in line with the making an impact that you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. So my royalties from the book go to the fight against veteran suicide and veteran homelessness at Veterans Community Project, where I'm the president of National Expansion. I thought that was a great use for the royalties, but I also want to make sure that anybody listening understands that this is not just a book for, combat veterans or for people who have their PTSD as a result of the military, or even just people who have PTSD. The first 2 chapters are about joining the military and going overseas. The rest of the book is your standard coming of age tale about a guy who's got a secret, undiagnosed, unknown to him psychological disorder, and is also happens to be pursuing the presidency at the same time. If you've heard that story before, don't buy the book. But the chances are you haven't. And then the third act is a very in detail account of what it's like to, face your trauma head on in therapy. And the whole way through, it is also, there are passages from my wife in the first person. She comes in throughout the book to give her account of what happened. And that's why I say it's really a book for anybody who has either, been close to somebody who's dealing with mental health challenges or has had them themselves. I really wanted to write the book that didn't exist, that needed to exist, that I needed 14 years ago, that I think might have helped me see that I needed to get help. And it's funny in parts, because you can't write a book like that and get people to read it if you don't put in some pretty good jokes.
Yes, I concur wholeheartedly as someone who has a news show with swearing. You talk about why this book is so important, and you mentioned you wish you had it 14 years ago. I think one of the most powerful messages that I've learned throughout my journey with PTSD and everyone else I've spoken to who may or may not have PTSD but is just trying to get through a day is the message that you're not alone. That changed my entire world. It like immediately melted away all the gaslighting and self-doubt, right? Because gaslighting can come from yourself as well.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that is one of the most important things. Talk a little bit about the book and how it assures other people and assuages their fears that they are alone, because I think that's one of the biggest hurdles to get over.
Well, trauma and any sort of mental health challenge it's very isolating, because one of the things that it does is it lies to you, gaslights you, as you said, and tells you that nobody else is going through this. This is just you. No one will understand. There's just something wrong with you. And with PTSD, in my experience, it also says this isn't because you went to war. It's just something with you. It doesn't have to do with your service. So for other people, it's not your car accident. It's not surviving cancer. It's not losing a loved one. It's not your divorce. It's just you. And this is what you're like. And that's why, so many people who've read the book have said to me, and it's really gratifying, people who like never were in the service or anything like that, or maybe didn't even have a particular trauma, but they just said that they were able to take a lot from the book about mental health. Because the truth is, like, I know the statistics say something like 1 in 5 Americans have trauma at some point in their life. My wife always says that is ridiculously low, and that the truth is that every American probably has trauma 5 times in their life. And so I'm really gratified to hear from so many people who are saying that they can pull so much away from the book, and that it's made them rethink all sorts of things about the way they're approaching certain parts of their life.
And politics is woven in there, right? Because I would even venture to say and agree with your wife that even just living in America in the last 5 years has been traumatic.
For sure.
And there's just so much stress and feeling of being alone, and with these loud voices on extreme ends, the most of the rest of us can feel drowned out and alone, right? And I think that that is something else that when you're weaving politics into this story, which you have also experienced firsthand, that makes a big impact, I think, on every single American.
Yeah. And the other thing I think it does in terms of reading the book is it makes for a more interesting tale, right? I mean, like, I recognize that had I been, managing like a Quick Trip during my struggle, like, it would still be a really important story, but probably fewer people would read it. And so, what I don't read political memoirs. I don't have an interest in reading books written by people to demonstrate to you like that they're the hero of every story. And don't get me wrong, like, I wrote one once and like it did pretty well, but I don't think I'd have, read it if someone else had written it. And so like, I wanted to put just enough in there for people who are interested in politics to show you what it's like behind the scenes and what those pressures are like. But I also didn't want it to feel like, oh, well, that lesson doesn't apply to me because I wasn't running for president, right? And at the same time, I wanted to put in enough so people could understand my experience in the military, my experience, why I would want to join the military, why it meant so much to me. But I didn't want to turn people off from the lessons in the book if they're not my dad, who has a library book or a library, shelves full of books written by Stephen Kuntz about the military. You know what I mean? Like, and a lot of people's dads, like I didn't want to turn those people off. And at the same time, everybody who's experienced mental health challenges and been in a relationship knows that both people in the relationship experience it. So that's why my wife's perspective is in there. Her own secondary post-traumatic stress is talked about by her in the book, because the other thing the book is a love story about a marriage surviving all this stuff. So the short version is that I wanted to write the third act of this book. That's what I was motivated to do, to take people inside the room where I got therapy so that they could see that it's not as daunting as they think and it's something they could do. But I knew that people wouldn't just read the third act that's just a guy in therapy, but that if you invest yourself in the story beforehand, and if I could write something that really grips them and takes them through a lot of different subjects that they're interested in, then they would fully absorb the third act. And so that's what I did.
Yeah, and it did it really well. Tell me about some of the humorous aspects of this, because I found it, after I got out of the military, I spent 10 years as a stand-up comic. And in hindsight, looking at the material that I used, boy, was it relevant. Talk a little bit about how you manage to get humor in here, which is seriously one of my favorite coping mechanisms.
Yeah, well, I mean, mine too. And the first thing is, look, as you know well, gallows humor is like a staple of the military existence. Yeah. And so there's plenty of that in there. But I made sure to do it in a way where you didn't have to be in the military to grasp it. But there's also stuff like just absurd situation. I mean, the book opens with, I'll just tell you the story that opens the book, because I kind of open the book with a scene from the middle of the story. And then the first half of the book is me getting you back to that point, and the second half is going beyond it. And the scene I open the book with is my first day at the VA. I show up and at that point, I show up at the VA in Kansas City, and I'm not looking too good. Like, I'm there because I'm having suicidal thoughts, and everybody's recognizing me, which, was like a little embarrassing, but especially when I get checked into the suicide hold in the emergency department at the VA. And I can tell everybody's being professional, but you can tell by double takes that they're recognizing me. I mean, at the time I was the far and away front runner for mayor, and I had run for the U.S. Senate in the state, and I'd been just recently basically a presidential candidate. So it was like, Patrick Mahomes and maybe a couple other people were better known than me in Kansas City, but that was it. And that was usually a great thing as a politician, but not so much in the psych ward. And so I'm getting checked in, and then I end up, they take all my belongings away, and I'm sitting there in my scrubs that they've given me that are several sizes too big. And I'm kind of got my arms wrapped around my knees, which are pulled up to my chest. And this young resident, psych resident, comes in. And I'm at first like super relieved that he doesn't seem to have any idea who I am. And we talk for a half hour, and I'm explaining stuff to him that I've never told anybody but my wife at that point, which were my night terrors, my hypervigilance, my self-loathing, my suicidal thoughts, and my depression and everything. And that, we're having that conversation. About a half hour into it, he says, "So do you have like a particularly stressful job or something?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm in politics." And he says, "Well, what does that mean?" So I kind of explain, and like real briefly. And he goes, "Well, has it been like really stressful the last year?" Because I'd gotten progressively worse over the year prior. And I said, "Well, I was going to run for president, and I decided to run for mayor instead, but I'm going to call that off tomorrow and just get help." And he said, "Well, wait a minute, president of what?"
Yeah, that's what I was going to be like. President of the Elvis fan club? He has no idea who you are.
Yeah, I'm like a 37-year-old guy sitting there in pajamas that are 5 times too big on suicide watch, explaining, I'm a presidential candidate. And I just felt ridiculous, but I was like, of the United States. And he says, "Well, who told you could run for president?"
So now he thinks you're delusional.
Oh, totally. And at this point, I don't realize that. So I've gone from being mortified that people are recognizing me to relieved this guy didn't, to now completely irritated that he doesn't believe me. So I just say, I don't know what to tell you, man. I spent about an hour and a half, just me and Obama in his office, and he seemed to think it was a pretty good idea. And he kind of absorbs that for a second, taps his notebook a couple of times and says, "How often would you say you hear voices?" So, there's stuff like that looking back, or just the fact that like after we knew, my wife and I knew that like we were dealing with PTSD, but before we got any therapy, we decided to get a dog. And the twist in the book is that, we should have got a service dog, but instead we were just hypervigilant and thought we were in danger all the time and hadn't had any therapy. So we got a protection dog. So basically I got a dog with PTSD, and my wife and I became her service animals to try and calm her down. And so part of the book is just like me and my dog Talia and my wife and all of us like basically going to therapy at the same time, and us figuring out what to do with the fact that instead of a nice fuzzy dog that would like wake me up from my nightmares and do service animal things, we adopted Jason Bourne instead. And so there's stuff in there. There's got to be levity, because otherwise how do you live through / read through a tale like that?
And live through, I think, is the key, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I totally 100% understand where you're coming from, and that gallows humor born from serving. If you had a sense of humor before you went in, it got real dark.
Yeah.
As you served. But, I appreciate you talking to us today and taking time. And I really encourage everybody to read this book. There's something in it for everyone. You don't have to have PTSD. You don't have to have been in politics, although I'd wager that most of the listeners of this program have touched either of those, if not both, in their tenure. So it's called Invisible Storm, A Soldier's Memoir of Politics and PTSD. The author is Jason Kander. Also, tell us a little bit before we get out of here about Majority 54.
Oh, thanks for asking. Majority 54 is my podcast that I co-host with Ravi Gupta, and we focus on taking progressive messages and values and helping listeners, convince the people in their lives without losing those relationships, because we think that that's the most effective way, is if this happens person to person. And, we both happen to be people who are veterans of, progressive campaigns in red states, and we kind of take those skills to help people communicate with the people in their lives.
And I think it was going to make everybody feel awesome that when they buy this book, knowing your royalties are going to help veterans, both suicide and homelessness in the VA and the veteran community. And I think that that's just incredibly awesome of you for doing that. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks, Allison, very much. I appreciate it.
And we'll talk again soon. I want to know more, and I'm looking for another book from you. I know that they're hard to write, but I look forward to another one. Everybody, Jason Kander. You can also follow him on Twitter at Jason Kander. It's an excellent Twitter follow. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Everybody stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Hey, everybody, it's AG. Sleep is one of my favorite things. It's a foundation for a healthy life. So if you're having difficult times sleeping, I recommend Helix Sleep. They saved me. They have an online 2-minute sleep quiz that you can complete. It matches your body type and sleep preferences to the perfect mattress for you. Why would you buy a mattress made for somebody else? It makes it hard to sleep. Everybody is unique. Helix knows that, so they have several different mattress models to choose from. They have soft, medium, and firm mattresses. They have mattresses great for spinal alignment to prevent morning aches and pains. They have body temperature regulating mattresses, and they even have a Helix Plus mattress for plus-size sleepers. I took the Helix Sleep Quiz online. I was matched with the Helix Midnight because I'm a side sleeper, and I prefer a medium firm mattress. And it has increased my ability to sleep exponentially. I cannot recommend it enough. So if you're looking for a mattress, head to helixsleep.com/dailybeans, take the quiz, order the mattress they match you to, and the mattress will come right to your door, shipped for free. They even have a 10-year warranty. They have financing options and flexible payment plans. So a great night's sleep is never far away. And you get to try it out for 100 sleeps with no risk. They will come and pick it up for you and give you a full refund if you don't like it, but you will love it. Plus, Helix was awarded #1 Best Overall Mattress Pick of 2020 by GQ and Wired Magazine. And they've been recommended by multiple leading chiropractors and doctors of sleep medicine as a go-to solution for improving your sleep. And again, Helix is offering up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows for listeners at helixsleep.com/dailybeans. That's Helix, HELIX, sleep.com/dailybeans for up to $200 off all mattress orders and 2 free pillows. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news? Everyone? Then good news, everyone!
Good news, good news. And if you have any good news or corrections or confessions or misheard song lyrics or hilarious closed captioning problems. You could send us anything, whoopee stories, Halloween photos, pets available for adoption in your area at dailybeanspod.com. Click on contact. And I think this is the final couple of days that we're going to allow the imposter feed of the Daily Beans to be out there. So if you haven't yet, if you listen on Apple and you're not a premium subscriber, go to apple.co/beans, all lowercase. Make sure you're following the right version of this podcast so it keeps showing up in your player. First up from Greg, pronouns he and him. Pronunciation correction. Ephrata is pronounced Ephrata. My mom's family was born in Honeybrook. My pet tax, well, I guess that's nearby there. My pet tax is Pedro, house panther, showing the blep. Look at this guy.
That is adorable. I feel like Pedro, like I understand he's not, but he's like an English detective. Like Pedro was definitely a human being of some sort. There's too much person in this cat.
He's so cool. I love him. Thank you for that. And I'll hit the next one too from Teddy. No pronouns given. You said you were in need of some good news and pictures. So here you go, Beans Queens. Thanks for your podcast. Look.
Look at that. Yeah. Can we talk about the baby cow? Oh, it's a Dalmatian. It's a Dalmatian, a baby Dalmatian. Of course it is.
Oh. And then look, Millie doing her best ET imitation.
Oh my God, that's really funny.
Thank you for that. Thank you so much. We need these today.
We do. All right. This is from Lisa, pronouns she and her. Long story, so apologies in advance. On Wednesday, the 23rd of March, I had a serious fall off my young horse and ended up our state's trauma hospital for 6 days. Jesus. Ooh. Fortunately for living in Australia, all I left with was a stack of reports and scans and $0 in bills. I managed to break my arm, my ribs, my back, tear my spleen, and lose a kidney. Jesus Christ, Lisa. Also suffered head trauma, which resulted in a false aneurysm, which was operated on last Tuesday. My God. And at the exact same time I was trying to get back on my feet, my horse had an adverse reaction to steroids, which were being used to treat her uveitis. Uveitis, thank you. She ended up having a 3-hour surgery to both eyes and was essentially blind for 3 weeks. Oh. It was an awful experience for both of us, and there were days where I doubted my decision to have the surgery as she was in so much discomfort. Well, on Friday, she had another checkup, and on Saturday, I got back on her. My first ride back since my accident. The view was one that I didn't think I would ever see again, and I didn't know how much time I'd have with her, but she is the puzzle piece that makes my heart complete. Ugh. Thank you for making the awful news coming at us every day just a little more tolerable with your humor and wit. Lisa, my goodness, I'm glad you are alive. Those injuries are horrible, and I'm so glad the horse is okay.
Yeah, and you got back up on her.
I know, baby. Literally back up on the horse. It's not a saying for nothing.
And I'm so happy you're living in Australia and you had $0 in medical bills. That's just so,
I have a comedian friend, and she's not from Australia, but she's from London. She talks about if she ever lost her leg, if she ever severed her leg, she would buy 2 first-class airline tickets, one for her, one for the leg, and it would be cheaper than getting medical help in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you. I'm so glad you're back up on the horse. I'm so glad that you're healing. I'm so glad the horse is doing better too. How terrifying to be blind for 3 weeks, especially your best friend. Oh, that's awful. But I'm glad everything is looking on the up and up. Next up from Gwendolyn, no pronouns given. Hello, Beans Queens. I was just going to send a picture per the request in Friday's episode, but then I remembered I had an interesting tidbit to share. My grandfather was the type of man who thought parents should be the ones to guide children and do any necessary correcting or discipline, and grandparents should only enjoy and love grandchildren. I think that's pretty common. As a result, the only time I ever saw my grandfather angry was when he was yelling at a cop that he thought was treating somebody unfairly. That has stuck with me for 30 years now. The only time I ever saw my Pap angry was on someone else's behalf. Pet Tax is my then tiny kitten, Clancy, who is now bigger than our Cavalier. May we all find a bit of zen.
Oh my God.
Zen that he has clearly found. Look at the second picture.
I know. I mean, honestly, the first picture makes me happier. For some reason, the profile picture of this cat. That is fan-freaking-tastic.
What a beauty. I wonder if the belly is a trap or if you can pet that belly.
That's a good question. All right, AG, thank you so much. And this last story comes from Mason, pronouns he, him. Dear Allison and Dana, your Thursday Daily Beans, Patsy Baloney, was my very first episode.
Oh.
And since I am not the kind of person to write a no thank you email to a podcast, it's safe to conclude that you have won me over as a listener.
I was worried for
I was like, where the fuck is this going?
like, uh-oh.
Oh, shit. We already lost Mason. Okay.
Patsy baloney in quotes. I'm like, oh,
and no
that already.
Thank you. Now, the best bad closed caption I saw was the phrase, proud Boyardee dominant pizza roll.
Dominic Pizzola. Proud
Boyardee dominant pizza roll. That's hilarious. It was in place of Proud Boys leader Dominic Pizzola. It sounds like something that would give me stomach problems. So in that respect, the captions were accurate. I'm actually writing about an exchange that took place during the good news segment of Patsy Baloney. You were going through listener submissions and Dana requested all the baby pictures. And then Allison said, any frog orgies you have, send them my way. Allison then seemed to address me directly. And quote, if you're brand new for some reason to the Daily Beans today, I'm not going to explain the frog orgy joke. If you're new to the show today, go look up the episode Charismatic Megaplastics and enjoy your day. Let me tell you, I did, and I did. When you recommend it, did you remember the release date was January 5th, 2021? It's an outstanding episode for everyone to revisit. I believe to date, there has been a select committee hearing about each of the hot notes from that show. Bananas.
Oh, that was the day
shit.
before the insurrection.
Now, I'd like to point out a clip from Patsy Baloney from 1518 to 1555, if you want the audio, quoting AG, and then there goes into quotes. The number 1, number 2, and number 4 people at the Pentagon are now just non-military, idiotic Trump sycophants. I call them sycophants because they're sycophants. And so everyone's questioning whether or not he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act and try to have the military force a rerun of the elections in these swing states. This is going to be tough to do. And then, of course, you have Louis Gohmert and all these other Republicans trying to incite violence on Wednesday in the Capitol. But interestingly enough, the head of the Proud Boys was arrested for destruction of property. And Mason says, that's when I subscribed. I was so impressed and chilled that I forgot why I listened to that particular Daily Beans in the first place. I'll have you know that the inside joke, the one about why Allison was all about frog orgies, was not explained.
So wait, was that quote from, that wasn't from Patsy Baloney?
No, that was from January 5th, 2021, from the Megaplastics episode.
Oh, wow.
That's what I'm understanding. Like you were foreseeing the future. Yeah.
Yeah. Number 1, number 2, number 4 at the Pentagon are just now non-military idiotic sycophants. And so everyone's questioning whether or not he's going to invoke the Insurrection Act and try to have the military force a return of the elections in these swing states.
Which is so interesting because we just fucking talked about that on today's episode. Crazy pants. All right, Miss Cleo. He goes on to say there was some talk about a two-headed, quote, rubber snake, which you named Loeffler and Perdue, but no mention of frogs. Now, I don't know if the human body will let itself asphyxiate from laughter, but the room around me started to go dark during several points in Dana's performance of the tale. That's when I signed up to be a Patreon. I want to be here when you report the news of Orange Julius Caesar and his co-conspirators getting frog marched into custody. May that day arrive soon. Mason, welcome to the fucking family. I love the submission so much.
Yeah, no, I was saying separately, a couple of days ago, I think was the frog orgy inside joke, right?
Yes.
Like last week sometime. But then I said, and also if you're brand new, you should really check out Charismatic Megaplastics. And now I want to re-listen to it based on this, what you've got here. Like, damn, we were on the 5th talking about...
I know. It's like a Simpsons episode.
The Insurrection Act and Louis Gohmert and Republicans inciting violence trying to incite violence on Wednesday in the Capitol.
Crazy.
The day before it happened.
That's nuts.
But interestingly enough, I said the head of the Proud Boys was arrested for destruction of property. Huh. Proud Boys. Gohmert. Insurrection Act. Talking about it all the day before it happened. Okay. You just made me blow my own mind, Mason.
That was pretty crazy. I know.
But yeah, the Loeffler and Perdue double-ended dildo.
I mean, it's so good.
Dana's performance during that episode was...
I'd like to thank you. I should have gotten a Webby.
You should have. I submitted that episode for Webby consideration, and we got an honorable mention.
Perfect.
But we should have won the entire fucking thing.
For
and
sure.
I wish, and I have to look at the award because it might say charismatic megaplastics on it.
That
And
would
if
be
it
amazing.
does, that would truly be incredible. All right, you know what? I'm going to rerun that episode at some point in this feed just as a bonus. Maybe I'll do it next Sunday for instead of a Mueller, She Wrote episode. That sounds reasonable.
There you go.
So Mason, if you're also not listening to Mueller, She Wrote and the MSW Book Club, that exists as well. And then, of course, I do a podcast with Andrew Torres called Clean Up on Aisle 45, which is a little more wonky, legally speaking, because he's a real life lawyer. And we get into the legal weeds of some of these filings, these court filings. So anyway, thank you and welcome. Yes, welcome to the family. And anybody else, if you know anybody who would really benefit from some kind of charismatic megaplastics type episodes and news with swearing, invite as many people as you would like to listen. And if you want to become a patron, we're doing the patrons sponsoring patrons. I believe we have a couple of free 1-year subscriptions to give away. And you can donate one. You can donate a year's worth of premium feed to someone who can't swing it right now. It's only $36 for the whole year. And you can do that at dailybeanspod.com. And they'll, like, right on the front page, it'll be patrons sponsoring patrons, I think is what it says. You just click on that and you can either be put on the list to get a free year or you can buy a free year for someone. It's pretty cool. All right. Thank you so much. Dana, do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No final thoughts today. Nope.
Okay. Well, we'll be back tomorrow. And everybody, seriously, these are tough times. So please take care of yourselves, take care of each other, take care of your mental health, take care of the planet, and vote blue over Q. I've been AG.
And I have been DG.
And them's the beans. The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg and Aimee Carrero. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com.
MSW Media.